Well, joining me right now is Anna Paulina Luna. She is running for U.S. Representative for District number 13, used to be the district for C.W. Bill Young. It is the seat currently held by Charlie Crist. Anna, thank you so much for joining us. Boy, you guys had a very expensive primary that got to be, well, what is the phrase? Pretty heated. So did that help or hurt as you now go forward running against Charlie Crist?
Well, first of all, nothing prepares you for running for office. I'm obviously not, I'm not from a political family, so this is all, I think, a learning curve for myself. But I think that it actually helped us. Right now, especially, I think in today's political climate, people want to know that you're genuine, that you are who you say you are, and that you can, I think, own your positions, even though people might not necessarily always agree with you. But as long as you're respectful about presenting those differences and opinions, hopefully you guys can meet somewhere in between. So I think it actually was good testing ground for really the general election, and I think we had fun with it.
So anytime you have a general election where the president is involved, whether it's fair or not, the candidate tends to be of the ruling party. It's kind of like, is this an affirmation of Donald Trump's run, or is this about Anna, you?
So I think that obviously, anyone who's in office, I think that you want to see the president do well, regardless of party affiliation. I think that, we're in one of the greatest countries in the world, but if we fail, everyone fails, right? So my stance is that I want people to really focus on me as a candidate. Obviously, I support the president, but really this is about myself. I was not exactly, I think, the DC choice for this seat. In fact, I think that when I announced, I definitely made some people angry. I think people said, oh, you shouldn't be running, you have no place to be running. Well, I can't help, that I'm a military spouse. I can't help that I was stationed here. But what I can say is that throughout my years of the last couple of years, especially working with different nonprofits, especially that focusing on coral reef restoration or veterans issues, when I believe in something, when I choose to fight for something, I do it well, and I put 110% effort into it. So I'm definitely excited about this. I can tell you that for, my issues and what I'm hoping to bring to the table, I think that we'll be doing very well, especially for people that are wanting change, but also, to unify.
Okay, so give me your top 3 issues and briefly describe what each of those are.
Okay, number 1 is veterans issues. I think that there's a huge issue with the VA rating system currently. I'll just tell you a little bit from personal perspective. My husband was shot in Afghanistan in 2014. I was with him through that entire process, and when he went to the VA to get his rating information together for the future, he was shot in Afghanistan. His muscles literally an inch shorter than his right muscle on his leg, and he was given a 0% disability rating. That's also not just him. That happens to a lot of our veterans here in the community, especially those that went to Vietnam and were exposed to Agent Orange. So VA disability rating system needs to be fixed, and I hope to do that, especially once I get, God willing, into Washington, D.C. Second issue would be a cleaner ocean, coral reef restoration, especially in the state of Florida. That's been something that I've been connected to for the past couple of years. And actually, my husband is still a certified scientific diver with Force Blue and does that on his free time. So that's something that we're very passionate about. Obviously, the ocean is something that affects us all, especially being here in Pinellas County and in Florida 13. And it's our responsibility, not just for our local economy or our local environment, for future generations to ensure that our community and our ocean is taken care of. So
let me ask you a couple of quick questions there, just because I want to get in some of these questions that were asked by members of the chamber. Okay. Mass transit, we need it, but we've not seen a lot of progress on it one way or another.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mass transit. Can you hear me now again? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mass transit is what I'm hearing.
Mass transit.
Oh, mass transit.
Yeah, mass transit.
Sorry. It's the audio. Right. I'm really sorry.
Everybody knows that we need it, but we've seen little progress. We've got the ferry system that's running back and forth, but that's very expensive and doesn't have as many riders to make it profitable. So what are you going to do for mass transit?
Well, it starts with finances, right? I mean, I literally just got done with a meeting yesterday with FTBA, and I think that, right now we need to make sure that we are really channeling and empowering people in the local community to have a voice in Washington, D.C. So, I'm not going to tell you that I'm a road builder, because I'm not, but ultimately I do have a really good open working relationship with that organization. And I hope to bring their points to topics of discussion, especially in regards to bringing money back from the federal government to invest in our local community. community.
Speaking of money, do you think it's a fair rating system to rate how well a congressman or a senator does by how much money they're bringing back from Washington? C.W. Bill Young, who I don't know whether you knew him, I knew him personally. He always brought a lot of money because he was head of appropriations for many, many years in the House. So is that the way you rate a candidate, by how much money they bring back?
I don't think so. And I say that because you can bring back a lot of money, but if that money is not going to where it actually needs to be fixing issues, for example, I'll take the VA for example. You can bring all the money you want back from Washington D.C. to invest, but if you're not actually having it going to the veterans and it's just going to buildings, it's not really necessarily going to fix those issues. So I think that there needs to be a more wholesome approach and look at how you're actually addressing what people are doing for their community. There's a lot of emphasis, I think, not just in politics, but in everyone's daily life on tangible assets and materialistic things. I don't necessarily think that that's what constitutes a good representative. I think what they're doing for their community, accessibility, if they're fixing problems, that should all be a factor.
So sea level rise, we could get in an argument about what's causing it, but it is happening. Would you do anything to help Pinellas County? Because I see that we are still approving developments that are in those floodplains. You got Old Northeast, you got the Shorecrest area, and the area kind of where I live in the High Point area that are going to get flooded as the tides continue to rise and sea levels rise. What would be your plan for that?
I mean, again, it takes finances, but really, I think that if you have a plan of action, going to the table, coming up with something for future generations, because obviously it will happen. That's something that we should all be talking about now, so that we're not just dumping it on, the next generation to handle.
Beach renourishment. It's a big deal in Florida. We hear some inklings in Congress, and although a lot of those funds come from the state, about that's a waste of money. What do you think?
I don't think it is. I mean, especially here, you have such a strong amount of tourism that's based on it, but also to remember your coastlines and the ecosystems that are off the coastlines are very important factors, especially within the fishing community, whether it's commercial or sports fishing. I can tell you that as someone, although I do not have my dive certification yet, I have gone out and I've been fortunate enough to talk to scientists about the impacts that has. So although it might seem like it's, kind of a waste of money, I don't necessarily agree with that. I again think that, we do need to put a stronger emphasis on our coastlines, on our ocean health, because that's something that directly impacts us. And by the way, that's also to be said with the red tide issue. Right now, we have a lot of problems that are contributing to the nutrient-rich environment that encourages the blooming of red tide. And that is a public health crisis because those off gases actually cause respiratory issues. And as we know, we're already having one massive respiratory issue with COVID-19. So why would we add additional things to that?
Yeah, speaking of COVID-19 and the whole response to that, if Joe Biden wins in November, I'm just presupposing, if he wins, you're going to be in the minority. In fact, you're probably going to be in the minority in the House anyway. How do you avoid being swept under the carpet or basically ignored because you're not in the quotes majority and because you're a freshman, a fresh woman coming into Congress?
Are you talking about with local people or in Washington, D.C.?
I'm talking about in Washington, D.C. I think people relate very well on a local level to all their politicians, but you get to D.C. and something happens.
I think that it's really important to maintain that you have a voice separately from even, what the group think is telling you to think in DC. I can tell you that, it's kind of interesting because you're right. If I do make it in as a freshman, I'm not only going to be a new member of Congress, but also too, there's different ways that I think we as a freshman class will be bringing to the table in Washington, D.C. in regard to communication. Communication, not just with other members of Congress through digital avenues, but also too with the American people. So really putting a large emphasis on social media, being able to publicly have those conversations on social media so that people can see that. I mean, that's really how you ensure that your voice is heard, because if I'm trying to speak on something, for example, like coral reef restoration, which should be a nonpartisan issue, and there are people that are not actively engaging with me because I'm in the minority or because I'm a Republican, ultimately, then they have to answer to the rest of their constituents as to why they're ignoring these environmental issues.
And lastly, representing the Hispanic community. This would be a first for this district because you are Hispanic, am I correct?
I'm half, yes.
Half Spanish. So are they going to go and vote Democrat like many people assume that they'll do, or is there room within the Republican Party for the Hispanics to have a say?
I think that there's lots of room for, not just the Hispanic American demographic, but, Black Americans as a whole. I mean, if you are looking at just voting based on your race, that's not right. You should be voting on your ideologies and on what your principles are. And that's what I tell people. Don't just vote Democrat because you think you have to vote Democrat. My viewpoints, my platform might align with you better than you think. And so, give me a chance, give me an opportunity. But I do find that we actually have a lot of support from the Hispanic community, a lot of pastors. And ultimately, this is not a seat that can be bought. I think that, people go into politics thinking that, it's great. You want to hang out at the country clubs in DC, fine. But if you want to do that, you shouldn't be in public service, because this is really, it's not an easy job. It's
Right.
about serving your community and representing your constituents' wants in DC. So that's what I'm here for.
All right, Anna, Paulina, Luna, 3 names. I always get them mixed up. I always go Anna, Luna, Paulina. No, but it's Anna, Paulina, Luna. That's the way it's supposed to be said. Thank you and good luck running for the U.S. Representative for District number 13 on the Republican side. Thank you, and take care and good luck in the election.
Thank you.